out and looking at things from above. So both the context of global ISEC as well as the world as well. And later in the day, we also looked at also taking a look in the mirror and starting to just kind of reflect on our experience and the challenges ahead. And yeah, I guess, but of course, having said that, it's only day one, so I'm sure there's more questions in your head than answers. Okay, so I just have a couple of check-in questions I wanted to go through with everyone. So could you just type like, what's the most interesting learning you had from today? Just what's the first some things that come to mind? Anyone? Wow, no one. Just whatever comes to mind straight away. Yeah, so I didn't want it to be too detailed, right? Like it doesn't have to be like analytically.
There's one guy, Wasa, I think he wanted to share.
Yeah, you can just turn your mic on and talk for a bit.
I'd say in the lead session that we had for being self-aware, actually we got a lot of clarity on being self-aware in a really different way itself. We used to think that okay, we are self-aware, but like after the lead session itself, each one of us that we were in that lead session, we had completely our mind changed on being how we are self-aware itself. And one thing that Johnny mentioned in that session was that while being an LCPE now, like you won't be able to do things that you are good at. You have to actually delegate all of those things. So that was one like really thing that struck me during that session. So yes, I'd say that.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would have liked to do a little bit more kind of plenary sharing and stuff at the end of the day. But just in the interest of time, we'll just move to the next question. This for now. Okay. So this is not a check-in question, but just a reminder. This morning I said that for every check-in session, I'll kind of throw out a big question for all of you guys to think about throughout the rest of the day, maybe the conference, even after the conference. So again, this morning, I talked about this idea of challenging yourself or constantly questioning yourself, whether you're even asking the right question. Is there a better way of asking the question? So I guess with that in mind, another check-in question I had is, this one's maybe a little bit more trickier to think of, but what questions did you ask yourself today? Yeah, like so during the sessions or at any other points in today, like what new questions did you realize that you want to have answers to? So you can just type your responses.
Can I share?
Yeah, sure. Okay, since no one typing.
Okay, so the questions I asked myself today was during each session, while there were information that were coming to our way, one of the things that I really asked myself is, what do I want to take away as an LCP from here, and what do I want to take away from here as my own individual self as well, because both of those things are important. That's one question that I really asked myself. And the other question is that while we're getting, like, whether it be while we're getting entity reality, or whether we're getting like whether we're learning about our passion as LPs during the lead session, I asked myself, is how much do I want to learn about it, and from what kind of perspective do I want to learn about these things? Is this it, or is there another angle that I really want to explore on it again? And how can I do that? What can be my support system on doing that? So I think yeah, those were the questions that revolved my mind for today.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. Yeah,
thank you.
All right. Okay, so maybe next question, a little bit more personal, is what aspects of your ISEC journey this year in 2020 has been the most difficult or challenging? Yeah, so if you just type your responses, this way we can read a lot of responses from many different people. Not knowing how to define success. Yeah, especially in this context when traditional exchange metrics are less relevant, right? Yeah. Yeah, retention. Unforeseen circumstances, not just pandemic, other stuff as well. Yep. Yeah, a lot of uncertainty things. Yeah, retention, member recruitment, taking risk. Yeah, so a mix of different things. So I will kind of put the sharing here for now, but throughout the rest of the conference in the check-ins and checkouts, we can continue to open up spaces like this. So now I'm going to move on and talk a bit about, a little bit about this year, all right? So I think, you know, the year 2020, I think it's fair to say it's been an unusual year, to say the very least, right? So certainly it's affected every one of us. And then also certainly it's affected some of us more than others. And, you know, this evening, I have a bit of a story to share about navigating a crisis, particularly about the MC term that I went through in Vietnam. But, you know, before I share this story, it's really important that I just clarify two things first. So first is that no two experiences are the same, right? So there will be many aspects within my story that will not be applicable in your context or in this pandemic context. But having said that, I'll still share things anyway in the hope that you can still draw out the relevant, whatever's relevant to you in your own context. So that's one. Two is, before I start, I also just need to clarify a few concepts that some of you may not be familiar with. And one of this concept is I'll basically start off and give out a bold statement that, in my view, resilience is overrated. Right? Resilience is overrated. So what do I mean by this? Right? So if I just ask all of you now, in your mind, what is the opposite of fragile? Like, what's the word that's opposite for fragile? Firm, yeah. Firm, tough, anti-fragile. Phoebe, you already know this. Strong, resilient. Okay, that's why I said only some of you don't know this, right? So, you know, typically what people would say is, you know, words like strong, tough, resilient. It's natural to think this is the opposite of fragile, right? But if we take a closer look and closer think about this, fragile basically means if you have something that's fragile, like this, and if I drop it, if it's fragile, it will break, right? If it's strong, tough, or resilient or firm, it will not break. So intuitively, it seems like that's one way to define the opposite. But the true opposite of fragile, the definition should be such that if you drop this cup, not only does it not break, but it actually becomes even stronger than before you dropped it, right? So saying that the opposite of fragile is, you know, resilient, that's kind of like saying the opposite of positive is neutral, when in fact the real opposite is negative, right? So this is this concept of anti-fragility. So, you know, if something is anti-fragile, instead of a box saying fragile, please handle with care, instead it would say, please mishandle, like treat me rough because I like it like that. I just want to break because that way I'll get even stronger, right? That wasn't a sexual joke, it just came out that way. All right, next. So fragile basically means, again, another way of looking at it is fragile hates disorder. It doesn't want things to change. Resilient doesn't really care because it's not going to change anyway. The anti-fragile likes disorder. And as I said before, the fragile breaks when dropped, whereas the anti-fragile gets stronger when dropped. And a way of, I guess, thinking of this a little bit more broadly beyond just breaking or not breaking is you can think of anti-fragile as anything that likes disorder. So things like volatility, uncertainty, error, variability, entropy, all of these things, the anti-fragile likes. And this concept of anti-fragility, it's actually once you start to understand this, you can start to see this in more and more places. So one example of an anti-fragile system is your immune system, right? So, the way that vaccinations work is you inject your body with a small piece of bacteria or virus. It learns how to fight it so that when the real one comes, it knows already how to fight it, right? So by giving it a little bit of a small thing, it becomes even stronger than before. Another example, actually, this one might surprise you, forest fires. So you may have seen the news like this year, last year, there's a lot of big fires like in Australia, in California, right? So there's actually two reasons for that. So the main reason is obviously global warming. But the second reason that less people actually discuss is actually due to forest fire management techniques. So what happens is if you look at pictures of forests from the 1930s, they were actually a lot less dense and had less trees than even what they have now in some national parks. So what people started to do was whenever there was a small fire, people would freak out, oh my God, homes are in danger. They would go in and put the fires out. But the problem with this is for a natural system, for hundreds of thousands of years, small fires like this were very natural, right? So by humans unnaturally stopping these small fires from happening, a lot of dead bush, trees, and bark would build up such that when there is a real fire, it becomes really, really big, much bigger than what it would actually occur naturally. So another example of, in this case, something that should be anti-fragile, but because of human intervention, they've turned it into something fragile. So if you are interested in this in this concept, like I actually, in my spare time, write like a blog. So if you can't be bothered reading the book because it's quite long, you feel free to just check my summary of it. It will save you a bit of time. I'll post a link to this later. So with that anti-fragility concept in mind, I will now talk a little bit about my story from ISIC in Vietnam for the 2 years there. So my story begins in June 2014. I had just joined the MC team as an international MC. And at that time, ISIC in Vietnam was going through a lot of rapid growth and changes. In short, the entity, it was just really chaotic because it was growing too fast. So just like this this is the NPM, like we're doing the sessions with like laptops, like it's just so chaotic. This is the MC office, everything is a mess. And it's the perfect metaphor or symbolism of what the entity was like at the time. It was growing, but it was a mess. So from the very moment when we started our term, we knew that there would be a lot of changes that would be happening in this coming term. So we kind of had this idea of rather than waiting to become a big like the next level of size of entity and then changing all these internal processes, we basically told ourselves, no, let's proactively change a lot of our internal processes and structures so that we already look like a bigger entity before it even happens. So there was this mindset of proactively preparing for change. But boy, little did we know just how much change the term ahead would actually throw at us, even though we were anticipating there would be lots of change. So, of course, I'll just talk a little bit about change management, actually. So we were proposing a whole bunch of crazy stuff, right? So for instance, before 2014, so ISIC in Vietnam, they would do 2 big national conferences each year, Ignite and iLead. And before 2014, they were open to the whole entity, right? So if you're a new member, if you're LCDP, LCP, everyone can join the conference. It just depends on whether there's enough spots for registration or not. But when we looked at a lot of bigger entities, especially as entities started getting bigger, it became more and more unfeasible to make a national conference for open to every delegate, because you just can't cater for everyone, right? So when we decided national conference will be open for at least like team leaders and above only, there was a lot of resistance from the LCs, because people would say, when I was a new member, like the national conference was a really special moment for me. It motivated me a lot. It gave me clarity into ISEC. So why would you let me deny this to my new members today? Right? So really valid reasons. But of course, part of growth means you have to let go of some things that you loved before in order to create more meaningful experiences overall for the entity. And when some people got like angry and upset about this, I always just told myself, like, when LCPs or when like your members get frustrated or angry about change, the positive side of that is at least they care. Like, they're angry because they care, right? Because if they didn't care about their team or their entity, they wouldn't even bother to show resistance. They would just be like indifferent, right? So again, yeah, we started the term thinking a lot about change management, and we proactively started to change our internal structures and process before change was, rather than letting change define us from the outside in. But to be honest, right, like, so we spent the first few months like going around the entity, basically convincing people like, hey, we should like change internal process and stuff. But to be really honest, like, especially me as like the MCVP OD at the time, even I have doubts about a lot of things, right? So, like, I have never, like, even when I was LCP, like, we had never had LCs as big as the ones in Vietnam. So I don't know like what it's supposed to be to grow to the next level. As an international, I was always doubting myself whether I truly understood the context of ISEC in Vietnam as well. I've only been here for a few months. So lots of doubts, but still like just pushed on, and you know, we made more and more progress. And eventually, like, the entity did give trust to me, and I was elected as MCP. And I kind of just said, you know, despite all these doubts I had, I'm not sure if I'm making the right decision or not. I just kind of tried to silence that voice, those constant questioning, a little bit, especially if they weren't productive. And I just told myself, look, let's just focus on what I can control. You know, because if I try to make perfection on everything and try to make everyone happy, then you'll make no one happy, right? So there was this kind of clarity there. And this is when the story like really begins from here onwards. So I'm elected MCP, and a few weeks later, there is a plan for ISEC in Vietnam to host International Presidents Meeting, IPM, or Global Leaders Summit. And just a few weeks before the conference, we hear this unexpected news that all of a sudden the conference cannot happen in Vietnam anymore. There was a last minute legal issue in terms of the license to host the conference. So all of a sudden, last minute, we had to move the entire conference to Cambodia. And this is not only a logistical nightmare, it's just a crazy bad financial nightmare as well, for a number of reasons. Number one, we lose a lot of the venue deposits. We have to reimburse delegates on like their flights and visa costs. There's moving costs as well. So we have to hire trucks and move everything, like all of our in-kind donations, everything, move it to another country. There's also lost BD sales. So a lot of sales that we made, they thought that they would be presenting to like in Vietnam, but now they realize it's in a different country, they pull out. Not only that, it's chaotic. Like everyone is angry. AI is angry at us. All the delegates are angry at us. Like everyone's just angry, and fair enough, right? And it's just a crazy mess. And me as an MSP elect at the time, I've like no idea what to do. I'm just so overwhelmed by everything that's going on. And if you thought this was bad, it gets even worse. Like, so my predecessor was also running for PAI at this election, right? And I'm not sure if you guys know, but when someone runs for PAI, apparently like there's all these rules about like you're not allowed to talk to them before the conference. right? So every time people would have like official questions about ISEC in Vietnam, like about the conference or whatever, they would come to me instead of the current MCP. So I have like so little information like what's going on, but I still try my best to like kind of address all the issues and things. And then the other part is when you're an MCP elect, you want to like, at IPM, you want to use that as an opportunity to like make new friends, right? So when but what happened is when I go up and try to make new friends, the people are still friendly to me, right? They'll be like, oh, hey, I'm Dae-so, nice to meet you. Like they'll ask like, which entity are you from? I'll be, oh, Vietnam. Then they would, as soon as you say you're from MCP elect of Vietnam, they give you this like funny look. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. And they give you this funny look because number one, they think that you're like, they think I'm promoting Tram to be PII. When to be really honest, my predecessor, when to be really honest, I'm like, yeah, like Tram, you're an awesome MC and I love you, but I don't think you're ready for PAI. Like I would not like actually promote her for PAI. Second of all, like everyone just kind of thought that I'm approaching people to ask to borrow money because like we knew ISEC in Vietnam would be broke after this. And the funny thing is it's actually true. So I did like ask people to borrow money. And it was just crazy conversation. Like imagine I literally went up to like MSP elect of Hungary, like, hey, can we borrow some money? And he's like, okay, how much? I was like, $20,000. He's like, okay, sure. Like a lot of people actually said yes, which is like so nice. But in the end, like we didn't end up needing to borrow money. But, you know, I guess all jokes aside, like it's just a moment of feeling helpless and powerless, right? So whether you're MCP, MCVP, or LCP elect, like I'm sure we've all felt this year of just feeling completely powerless over an external situation that you just can't do anything about. And the worst part is like at this conference, although I was surrounded by all these people that I love, a lot of my MC elect were there as like helping out CC. I knew, of course, a lot of the CC. I knew a lot of MC Cambodia that really helped us a lot. So although I was surrounded by all these friends, I still felt so lonely. And that kind of loneliness, when you're surrounded by people you love and you still feel lonely, that's like a psychological deep level of loneliness. And it's really difficult to come out of that. But, you know, the kind of moving on, I'm MCP elect, I don't have time to sook about it. So when I felt helpless, I kind of just always reminded myself of this like elephant story. So I'm not sure like if you guys know, but I'll tell this elephant kind of little short story. So the thing is, in some places, where they have like elephants for circus or things like this, they would tie an adult elephant with the small thin rope overnight. And the funny thing is, although that elephant is big and strong enough to escape, it chooses not to. And the reason why is what they do is as soon as the elephant is born, they would take a baby elephant away from its mother the entire day and tie that elephant's leg up to this pole. And every day the baby elephant would kind of pull at that rope and try to go back to its mother. And it grows up like this, basically being conditioned that it's never strong enough to break free from that rope. So that even by the time the elephant is like big and strong and capable of breaking free, it just chooses not to because it tells itself it cannot. So I always tell myself this story whenever I feel helpless or useless. I just try to convince myself like actually there is something we can do about it. But you know, yeah, and there's this kind of idea that I really bought into. It's like the problem is not the problem is how you see the problem. It's all about how you frame it, right? Similarly to, you know, being able to ask better questions, it's just if you frame the problem differently, chances are you'll find a better answer, a solution as well. But, you know, so this is basically the internal communication message that we wanted to spread out to the entity, to the members at the time. But the challenge with doing this is in order for me as MCP elect to go around to like the regional conference and tell like the network, like, hey, the problem is not the problem is how we see the problem. I first have to really believe it myself first. Because if you don't believe it yourself, how can you possibly convince other people? So yeah, next few months after the whole conference crisis is we basically went around, aligning the network with this message that, look, we're stronger than we think. The whole point, we're stronger than we think. And, the whole point of having hosting IPM in the first place and getting out of this was to show the world. It was almost a way to show off to the world, like what Vietnamese youth are capable of. We've been, as a country, it's been through many challenges before. And this is exactly why ISEC is needed here. And leading by example of being able to navigate through this uncertainty, look forward and keep finding a way out. That's like the whole point, not only of our entity, but of like ISEC in the first place, right? It's to get out of difficult situations. So we continue to push through. But even as we push through, like I have to admit that it was just really tiring at times, right? Like it's one thing to have all this positive mindset, like, yeah, we can do it, like problem's not the problem. But when you're actually on the battlefield, like fighting, it's very easy to get exhausted. So beforehand, in my time in ISEC at this point, I kind of lived by this concept of an energy bank. So the way that the energy bank works is you wake up, you start off with 100%, and throughout the day, you start to lose more and more energy. And sometimes there might be certain events that happen throughout the day. Like if you have a meeting with someone and then lots of people arguing, you might lose a lot of energy. Sometimes you might have some, moments of pride or something achievement, and you might lift up the energy. But it was always a number that goes between 0 and 100. But then, a couple weeks later, I just happened to stumble upon this book, this anti-fragile book, and it really completely changed this energy bank concept away from, rather than starting at 100 and losing energy throughout the day, I kind of turned into a mindset of, instead of like letting bad things, instead of trying to think of reducing the damage from bad things, I instead started to think more of how can I feel good when bad things happen? Like, is there a way of kind of cheating or hacking my mind such that when challenges and uncertainty, disorder, all of the stuff that anti-fragile likes, is there a way for me to like those things as well? Because naturally, humans are not wired like this. But I do think there's ways to kind of rewire your brain to think in this way. So yeah, as soon as I stumbled upon this anti-fragility concept, and this is actually the first line in that book. As soon as you open the book, this is the first line, that wind extinguishes a candle, but it energizes the fire. It just really depends on how you're wired. So as soon as we kind of came across this concept, we started to kind of preach this idea that maybe, although this might sound really crazy, there actually may be some opportunities hidden under these threats, right? So although this whole conference mess of losing money and just all these problems, yes, it was a really bad thing, but in order to move forward, if we see this threat or bad thing as also coming along with some opportunities as well, opportunities that would not exist if these bad things happened. And so the first question is like, is it possible that such opportunities exist? And then we really believe the answer is yes. Then it follows, okay, now let's try to find out what those things are and then jump on those things. So I think, to give one example, one opportunity for ISEC in Vietnam at this time was for, how I showed you at the beginning of the story, the kind of messy picture, right? Like it was just a mess in terms of the way we organize finance, our governance processes. And now, because we were under a lot of, I guess, the threat of being shut down if we don't get our shit together, it was a really good way of just pushing the entity, like, okay, no more excuses. We have to like clean up our finance and governance process ASAP. So that was kind of one step forward, plus some other things as well. Yeah, but okay, actually this part I'll skip. So yeah, so we were basically like, okay, every threat has some opportunities. We were identifying them and acting on them. But again, no matter how motivated you are or how much of the right mindset you may be, there's always points in your term where you can feel the drop again, right? Even though you just came back from like entity visit or regional conference, like telling members like, hey guys, like let's be positive, let's be, you know, solution oriented and so on. But deep down, even you like, fuck, like it's really difficult to keep maintaining this mindset when all this shit keeps happening, right? So I remember in one of the MC quarter reviews, the LC coaches had just come back from all their visits, and we were going through like planned versus achieved or goal versus actual. And almost every single LC, every single program, it was just in red. It's like, yeah, behind, 30% achievement, 60% achievement. Like everything was on red. So all of us were just sitting around like, fuck, like we really like didn't achieve much this quarter and we were feeling really down. And in that moment, my phone starts ringing and the AI for AP, Ardian, is calling me, right? Like my AI coach. And I'm like, oh shit, like this Indonesian guy, he's just gonna like tell me off for like, I know he's just gonna tell me off for like not achieving in all of these programs and stuff, right? So I was like, fuck. So I pick up the phone, I'm like, sup, Ardian. And he's like, hey bro, and the first thing he says is like, hey bro, congratulations. And I'm like, what? Congratulations? I thought you were gonna tell me off for not achieving our entity goals. And he's like, what? No, I say in Vietnam, you guys are like global #2 in like OGIP growth or something like this for the last quarter. And then yeah, congratulations, like you're doing really well, like just keep it up. And this to me, like I never even thought of it because we had set these you know, kind of big goals, and just because we were behind in them, we actually forgot to celebrate progress that we made along as well. So yes, it's really important to be to face reality in terms of the problems you have, but I think especially when you're going through times of crisis, it's also equally important to celebrate those small wins. You know, besides just kicking yourself over these over the continuous setbacks, right? And the reason why this is important is because your mental health is so important, right? The mental health, it really makes a difference. So, you know, I guess message here is be proud of what you've achieved and the progress you were able to make, rather than just kicking yourself over what you weren't able to achieve, because there's always going to be things that you weren't able to have achieved. Yeah. So I think I'll wrap up the story there. And if I kind of think about, you know, if I ask myself some questions, like one, as I say in Vietnam 15, 16 term, like, could we have done better? Like, of course, yeah, of course we could have done more. The second question is, well, did we do our best? Like, did we really give it our best? Then the answer is like, yeah, fuck yes, we did our best. And I think, you know, if you keep asking like, were you good enough or are you doing enough? Like, it's almost like asking the wrong question, right? It's asking the wrong question. So, you know, rather than continuing to kick yourself, just kind of look back and think about all the crazy things that you were able to do. Because sometimes it's harder to see what you've achieved and it's much more easier to see what you haven't. So I'll wrap up there. Thanks for listening. And I hope that over time, you learn to dance with anti-fragility as well. It can really work a lot of wonders into your ISEC entity, as well as in your personal life too. Cool. All right. So just we're a little bit over time. I apologize for this. Some sessions went over time today. So now we're going to jump into this tribes sharing space. I know that in the check-in, there was a little bit of chaos because, you know, some delegates, like maybe they couldn't join the check-in because of exams or other reasons. So this time around, what we'll do is, here is a link. You should have received from the CC, like a link to whether you're at the check-in or checkout or not. So actually, I'll just open this and show you guys. Yeah, this one. So you just open this Google Doc and just, you know, right now it's day 1 checkout. if you are listening to me now, if you are present, just find your name. Maybe it's easier if you find your name through here, or yeah, find your name and just put a tick if you're present. And then if you happen to be a delegate where, for example, you're the only one that ticked and no one else is here, then you can just join another tribe's Google Meet link. So you're not just there. That way, you're not there by yourself. Okay. So it will be a little bit chaotic, but hopefully this year we're all a little bit more used to chaos. So I'm sure we can manage. So how about we do this tribe sharing, maybe just for 10 minutes. All right, we'll do this for 10 minutes. And then we'll come back back into the plenary for some last minute announcements as well. Cool. So we'll 10 minutes from now. Just
Okay, people, if you're back, can you type in the chat? And also, if you want us to share, you can share what is the name of your team. Group 2, let's team Unbi. Unbi being the favorite of the MCP. Unbi is really cute. If you haven't seen Unbi, she's like a Asian baby gift. Okay, look at Chetra. I think he's in love with her. I'm not sure if she's available though. All right, mascot of AP. Yeah, that's her. Okay, if you're back, type in the chat so that we know. Oh, NJ, wow, so mean. Okay, conference love. Yes, we're gonna do some approval for you so that giving some spice to this conference. No one is safe from sharing. Yes, none of. Okay, cool. I think we can go ahead. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So I think CC, there's some announcement.
Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna go. Hello everyone, this is Sumi, your showcasing project manager and also your RMVD. So just a quick exciting announcement from the showcasing team. We're looking for 5 people to send me message on private chat right now who can jump on a Zoom call with me and share with us your highlights for the day so we can feature you on the stories. So 5 people starting from now. Just write me in private chat. Yes, you can be famous.
You mean now, right? Just asking.
Yes, now in the Zoom chat.
Okay, everybody, like this is the time to compete.
5 people.
First top 5. We just to let you know, look doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, don't worry about look. We are not that discriminative. Chetra, your obsession.
All right.
We
guys.
can start from some MCP. Okay, remember type your name.
Okay. Okay, we got it.
What happened
Thank
is
you so
that
much.
you should list out your name if you're interested for showcasing, but it's done already. Thank you.
All right. Cool. So now I'll hand to you, Phileas.
Okay, amazing. Hi guys, I hope you're still awake. So here is your agenda manager again. So I want to inform all of you that after the checkout, you're going to have a small break, and then afterward you're going to have entity consolidation time. So you may ask like why you have this time or why you're having this. So so I want to show you some statistics, about like, okay, actually recap your daily learning is very important because it will help you that you are achieving something, you feel productive, you will have a better mood tomorrow, and it will help you release your stress as well because you actually feel that you are improving and you are learning. So yeah, so here what it works is like in the coming time, we actually prepared a consolidation sheet for you guys for everyone to consolidate it. You can find your name and your entity there on this spreadsheet already. How it works is like your MCP are going to coordinate with all of the MCP and also the LCP together. So that means your NEB, okay? And then you are going to have 1 hour entity consolidation time before you go to the social agenda. So in this space, what you're going to do is you're going to share the learning together, like what you have learned. And secondly, it will be also about consolidating your call to actions on, in terms of today's session, how it will bring you insights and also call to action for your LC planning or MC replanning in the coming time. So just check out the spreadsheet there. I can send it again in the delegate announcement channel. Yeah, so, and you can go and approach your MCP and you can have your entity consolidation time. Yeah, so that's all from my part. Thank you so much.
Cool. Okay. So thanks everyone for a good day 1, and I'll see you all again on day 2. Cheers. Bye
Wait,
now.
I just thank you, but I want to know, like, it says CC announcement. Phileas, sorry, Fatih, for today's noodle party, is it?
Oh.
Wait, where is Fatih? Oh, she's not here. Okay, anyone, anyway, people, tonight, thank you, Chair, so much. Amazing. Let's say thank you to Mr. Deso. He's actually working, but he's decided to spend time for us. Okay, so today we're gonna have AP Noodle Party. So basically, it's a time that we're gonna like eat noodle together, which is something that you kind of do every day since you are very broke, right? I guess most of you don't have a lot of money, so probably just another night that you have. But anyway, joke aside, please join the link, and then we can just share like what are the kind of noodles that we are eating, so we can get to know each other through the instant noodle. Okay, cool. And then are we taking photo? Okay, there are some people wanted to take photo, so let's take photo, and then after that we can end the day. So wait.